Hello my friends, I hope you're having a lovely day, and in today's video I'm going to talk about my time with Doom Eternal. I had a chance to play the Switch version last night. I played it for about 2 hours or so, so I still have a long way to go. I have not played Doom Eternal on any other system, so my first experience with the game is the Switch, and that's why I wanted to share some thoughts. Doom 2016 I played on the PS4 and then I also played on the Switch. I was very impressed with the Switch version. Obviously it didn't look as nice as the PS4 version and it didn't run as well and it wasn't at 60 frames per second. There's a whole bunch of caveats there, but still I was very impressed with what Panic Button, the developer who handled the port, managed to do with that game. But Doom Eternal is different because a Switch version of Doom Eternal was planned right from the beginning. Bethesda ID from day one knew they wanted a Switch version of Doom Eternal, so Panic Button was involved from day one as well. And they got, it makes a big difference when you're talking about a game that's been out for a few years that gets ported to Switch versus a game that is being intended for Switch from the beginning. Obviously, the other platforms were the focus: PS4, Xbox One, PC, but the Switch was right there at the beginning, and I think it really shows in Doom Eternal because this port could very well be the most impressive port on the Switch yet. I know it's not really fair to say port because it was planned from day one, but it's being called a port. Like I said, target platforms were the ones that had more power, but Switch was involved from day one. But anyway, this game is super impressive. The 2 hours that I've spent with it, it is certainly more impressive than Doom 2016. I'd say Doom Eternal looks better. I'd say Doom Eternal runs better. As far as frame rate goes, I'm not one that's like, oh, the frame rate jumped from 30 to 27. This is unplayable. I don't really even notice that stuff. If it goes from 30 to like 15, okay, I notice that. But my time with Doom Eternal, I feel like I saw one instance of a frame rate dip, and it was in a cutscene, and that was it. I really don't feel like I had any other frame rate issues as far as I've been playing for the last 2 hours, and there's plenty of big environments and plenty of environments filled with enemies, and they're all throwing projectiles and lunging at you and all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and you're running around ridiculously quick, bouncing from enemy to enemy. There's a lot going on, but there has been nothing where I've noticed the performance hitch so far. Like I said, I'm 2 hours in. This is early impressions, but I am just so impressed by what I've seen so far that I wanted to talk about it. Because early on in Doom 2016, you certainly feel some performance hitches. It doesn't take long for you to get into the game before you notice like frame rate gets a considerable hit in some areas. And again, I believe being involved from day one really makes a difference here. Things could go terribly wrong after my first 2+ hours, and the frame rate could really take a dive. I don't know. I will report back on that. Obviously, I'll talk more about it on the podcast coming up, but because I'm going to have more time to play. But what I've seen so far is staggering, really. I think if this game manages to keep up how it's presented itself so far for the rest of my experience, it would be hands down the most impressive Switch port. I think the speed of your character really helps as well, because I know this game is 60 frames per second on other platforms, it's 30 here, but your character's so quick that I really don't feel like, I'm sure if I jumped on the PS4 or the Xbox One version, I'd be like, yeah, 60 frames per second, I feel the difference. But it really doesn't make a difference for me here. Obviously, I haven't played the other versions, but it just feels good. It feels fast, it feels snappy, it doesn't feel like you're like slogging through areas. It's a very quick and responsive game. The controls are the same. They're quick and responsive. You have motion controls as well, which, to tell you the truth, function more than fine. Panic Button knows how to do motion controls, but at least for the weapons and the gameplay in Doom, you're not really using motion controls a lot. You're not really like aiming down the sights of a gun and taking out enemies. You got all kinds of crazy creatures running at you like at breakneck speeds, and you're just blasting everything in sight. So it's a little bit different, but you get at least I have access to some sort of sniper shot, and that's where I use motion controls, and they work great. But other than that, I'm not really using motion controls. But I like the option. Being there, and I will leave it on because I do use it. Just it's not Doom Eternal isn't it both is and isn't your traditional first-person game because it's just so much more intense and like balls to the wall that you don't have time to use motion controls to line up shots. But those instances do pop up from time to time. But again, nice that the option is there. But yeah, everything feels smooth and snappy and responsive and good and quick and engaging, and it's just really good. It feels really good. It plays really good. As for the game itself, it's a lot of fun as well. I really liked Doom 2016 a lot, and I'm liking Doom Eternal just as much so far. I first started playing the game and the music hit, and the soundtrack for Doom 2016 is probably one of my favorite gaming soundtracks, and it's a genre of music that I don't really listen to, but it just fits so well with the game. And that's the same approach that Doom Eternal has. When I started playing and the music started kicking in, I reached over and grabbed my controller, my TV remote, to turn up the sound for my headset because I was like, yeah, I want to get into this. It's just, heavy metal guitar and really deep bass and really intense beats and all the crazy action that's going on. It ties so well together. And that's just something I want to listen to loudly, and it makes it so much more fun. It's just when you're running around like blasting the shotgun at enemies and shooting rockets and throwing grenades, and fireballs are whizzing by and other gunfires going on, and giant enemies drop down out of nowhere and start chasing after you, and you have this heavy metal soundtrack pumping in the background. It just feels so cool. It's one of those moments in games where I get goosebumps. It just feels awesome. You feel like you're doing something really cool. So, there's lore and stuff in it as well, which I don't really care all that much about, but there's not a ton. It's not like you gotta sit through, 5-minute long cutscenes or anything like that. There's some bits and pieces here that are kind of interesting, but I'm just in it mainly for the gameplay, the gunplay, if you will, and it's great so far. Really enjoying it. Like I said, I've only played a couple hours so far, but what I have seen is super impressive, among the most impressive I have seen on the Switch, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But I wanted to share some gameplay and some early thoughts. Again, I will be sharing more thoughts on the podcast, so look forward to that. But that's pretty much it for today, so thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting. It's very much appreciated. Also, a huge thank you to those of you who support me on Patreon. It helps me do videos like this. Helps out with the site, the podcast, social media, all that good stuff. If you want to learn more about the Patreon, which is just $1, you can check out the link in the description below. But as for today, that's it. I'll be back tomorrow as long as I have something. So until then, have a lovely day and a lovely evening, and I'll see you in a few short hours.